Coming up on the 2014 FIFA World Cup magazine, we pay a visit to Belo Horizonte. We meet one of the women helping to rebuild what will be the city's World Cup stadium. And we examine the crisis in club football in Belo, a city with 3 top-flight teams. But we begin in Samoa, a tiny island nation in the Pacific Ocean, approximately halfway between Hawaii and New Zealand. In November, Apia's J.S. Blatter Stadium hosted Oceania's opening round of qualifying matches for the 2014 FIFA World Cup. Over the course of 6 days in the Samoan capital, Tonga, American Samoa, Cook Islands and the Samoans themselves played each other in a round-robin tournament to determine which nation would join the region's top 7 teams in Fiji for round 2 in June. History was made in the competition's opening encounter as one of FIFA's lowest-ranked nations, American Samoa, defeated Tonga 2-1 to record their first-ever competitive victory. 17-year-old high school student Shalom Luani was the unlikely hero, scoring the decisive second goal 16 minutes from time. And the message from their Dutch coach?
Do not be just satisfied with this one victory, this epic victory. Enjoy it. But you know what? We have a chance maybe to win this thing.
After another Luani goal had secured them a 1-1 draw with Cook Islands, American Samoa went into the final game of the tournament against Samoa here in blue, knowing that a second victory in 5 days would see them achieve the coach's target of topping the group and qualifying for round 2. In terms of chances, Samoa dominated proceedings, repeatedly bringing the best out of Niki Salapu, who was in goal for American Samoa the day they conceded 31 unanswered goals against Australia back in 2001. In the dying minutes, with the game still goalless, Rongen's men almost carved out a good opportunity of their own. Within seconds, the ball was at the other end of the pitch, and Samoa's Silau Malo showed great composure to finally beat Salapu and secure the host nation a place in round 2. Delight for Samoa, but huge pride in defeat for their neighbours.
Be very proud of what you have done for your country. Don't ever forget that.
Samoa's reward is a place in Group A in round 2, alongside Vanuatu, Tahiti and New Caledonia. Papua New Guinea, Fiji, Solomon Islands and New Zealand make up Group B. The top 2 teams in each section will progress to round 3. This month, our destination is Belo Horizonte, the largest and most important city in Minas Gerais. It dates back to the late 19th century, when it was purpose-built on a series of rolling hills to be the new state capital. More than a century on, Belo boasts a population approaching 2.5 million, and this hustling, bustling metropolis in Brazil's southeast is readying itself for a second tour of duty as a host city at a FIFA World Cup. So how best to negotiate one of the country's biggest urban areas? Well, according to this man, public transport, and the bus in particular, is the only way to travel in Belo Horizonte.
Belo Horizonte has 300 bus routes and some 3,000 vehicles. There are blue and yellow buses. There are also red and orange buses. Some connect the different parts of the city, and others go into the centre. They link up many different areas.
Ricardo Teixeira, or Mr. Bus as he prefers to be known, is something of a celebrity in Belo. A bus enthusiast as a child, he began advising passengers on how to make sense of the city's complicated public transport system after losing his job in administration.
I've always been interested in collective transport, so I created a guide for all the people who use the buses every day. Good heavens, not again. Today is a new record. Hello, Ricardo, Mr. Bus speaking. Good afternoon. Hi, how are you? Good. What station are you going to? Where are you?
Such was his popularity, given the clarity and accuracy of his advice, Mr. Bus was taken on by the city's transport department. He's always available on his mobile phone, and his guide to local bus routes is a must-have for many locals and visitors alike. But his influence on life in Bello doesn't end there.
As well as collating information on collective transport, I also promote road safety. We want to change attitudes of the drivers, pedestrians, bus users, motorcyclists and cyclists. We should all behave safely to avoid accidents and save lives.
And these roads will be busy in 2014 when thousands of visitors are set to descend on Belo Horizonte. And they're in for a real treat, according to one of the city's most famous musicians.
As people, we're very welcoming here. We like to look after our visitors. This is a cosmopolitan city. A city that is creating the infrastructure necessary to be able to host a World Cup. It's a city that is very much in the Mineiro style, with lots of good food. And within the city itself, we have a lovely area called Pampulha. That is where the Mineirão Stadium is located, and I think it's going to be a huge party.
The pace of life was somewhat different in Belo Horizonte back in 1950, when the city was chosen to host 3 matches at the 4th FIFA World Cup. The Estadio Independencia was purpose-built for the tournament and staged its first fixture on June 25th, when Yugoslavia faced Switzerland in front of 7,000 fans.
The stadium was packed, which was a novelty. The building of the Independencia was also a novelty. In the first match, Yugoslavia beat Switzerland in front of a big crowd. There was a good number of spectators there. It was the first time that people from Minas Gerais had seen Switzerland and Yugoslavia, and it finished 3-0 to Yugoslavia.
Whilst neither Yugoslavia nor Switzerland would progress to the final round from Group 1, in Group 2, England, playing in their first World Cup, were widely expected to make it through, particularly after a 2-0 defeat of Chile in their opening game in Rio. Their second match in Belo Horizonte was against the United States, and a crowd of over 10,000 packed the Independencia in anticipation of a one-sided encounter.
We were expecting it to be 10-0 or 11-0 because there was very little football played in the USA. That's changed, of course, but back then they hardly played. But they put a squad together and came face-to-face with the England team, with Billy Wright and Tom Finney. It was a great team, and the stadium was packed. I was there in the middle of it all, in one of the stands, when they came onto the pitch. I felt sorry for the Americans. There's a chapter in my book in which I compared the Independencia to the Colosseum. The Americans were the Christians, and the English were the lions that would devour the Christians.
There was to be no slaughter to satisfy the baying hordes on this occasion. As hard as they tried, England just couldn't find a way past the amateur soccer players from across the pond. Instead, a first-half strike from the USA's Joe Gaetians enabled David to upset Goliath. The 1-0 scoreline was met with disbelief back in London, where newspaper editors suspected a misprint and promptly changed the result to 10-1. So Spain, not England, progressed to the final round from Group 2. And a few years later, Plinio Barreto published an account of the tournament's biggest shock in his first book, Football on the Heels of Nostalgia.
It happened in the Independencia in July of 1950. People watched with disbelief as the famous England team, featuring Billy Wright and company, suffered the most surprising defeat in its history at the hands of an inexperienced squad from the land of Uncle Sam.
Uruguay thrashed Bolivia 8-0 in Belo's third match in 1950, and today, more than 60 years on, the Independencia, which is home to America, is undergoing major reconstruction. All that remains of the previous facilities are the changing rooms. Set to be completed in a few months' time, the new Independencia won't be utilised in 2014, when Barreto is hoping to witness his second FIFA World Cup. So, can the host nation lift the trophy this time around?
I will be supporting Brazil, of course. I've been a Brazilian for 89 years, but I don't believe in this national team. I just don't believe in them. Brazil might get to the quarter-finals, but I doubt it. So I'll support them, but I'm doubtful.
We'll have more memories from 1950 next month. At least 10 different nations are set to play in Belo Horizonte during the 2014 tournament. And during their stay in Minas Gerais, fans of those teams would be well advised to visit Ouro Preto, a former mining town that UNESCO has designated a World Heritage Site. Located just 98 kilometers southeast of Belo, Ouro Preto dates back to the late 17th century, when the gold rush was at its height. It was a time of Portuguese rule, and the Baroque architecture that was prevalent at the time is still very much in evidence in the town today. Whilst mining continues in the area, albeit on a much smaller scale, tourism is now the town's big earner, with visitors from all corners of the globe a near permanent fixture in the cobblestone streets. Ouro Preto, which was once the capital of Minas Gerais, boasts a number of churches, the most famous of which is the Church of St. Francis of Assisi, one of many buildings sculpted by local artisan Aleijadinho.
It took us 3 days to come here by airplane from China. The journey was very tough, but we are glad that we came. This place is very beautiful indeed. We also think the Brazilian people are very welcoming, very good. We really like this place.
The market is another place of pilgrimage for the tourists. And this being Brazil, there's no escaping football, even in Ouro Preto. It's very much part of the fabric of society, a fact that hasn't gone unnoticed by some visitors from Europe.
Football thrives here. You can see it straight away when you're walking in the streets and when you're passing by bars which have TVs with football on them. Everyone here has football shirts. It really does thrive here, more so than in Holland.
There'll be football shirts galore in Ouro Preto come 2014, although a heavy coat may also be required. The temperature here can drop below 0 in June and July, but don't let that deter you. Our next stop is the Academia Vanda Bambira, one of the many sports and fitness centres in Belo Horizonte. It's owned and run by Manuel Rezende de Matos Cabral. His friends call him Nelinho, a moniker made famous during the 1978 World Cup, when the Brazilian international scored one of the tournament's greatest ever goals. Born in Rio de Janeiro, Nelinho has long since made Belo his home, and he spent most of his playing career with the city's most successful club, Cruzeiro. He was a surprise inclusion in Brazil's squad for the '74 tournament in Germany, although his first encounter with the FIFA World Cup came 16 years earlier.
I still remember '58. I was 8 years old, I lived in Olaria, and the World Cup was being broadcast on the radio. I remember the commentator's voice would come and go. We were crowned champions, and there was a great party all over the country. Then came the 1970 World Cup, which was broadcast on television. That was another great party, and it was one of the best Brazilian national teams I've ever seen. I'd actually say the best of all time, because they weren't just good technically, they also lifted the trophy. I still remember exactly what happened.
A late call-up for the '74 tournament, Nelinho was firmly established in the Brazilian squad for the '78 World Cup in Argentina. Unspectacular yet undefeated in the 7 games they played, Brazil missed out on a place in the final on goal difference. And it was in the 3rd place playoff against Italy that Nelinho took centre stage.
I sensed the goalkeeper was expecting me to cross it, so I changed my mind, and instead of hitting the ball with the inside of my foot, I used the outside. I curved it towards the goal on Zoff's right-hand side. He was the Italian keeper, and it worked out well. People still ask me if it was a lucky goal, if I wanted to cross the ball. I always have to explain that I didn't cross the ball. If I had done, I would have used my instep. It's a goal that is still talked about today, and it's obviously something I have fond memories of.
The curtain came down on his international career a couple of years later, but Nelinho hit the headlines again domestically when he swapped Cruzeiro for their cross-city rivals Atlético Mineiro in 1982.
The Cruzeiro directors thought I was finished, so they decided to sell me to Atlético. They wanted me to go there because they believed I could no longer play, that I was a negative leader, and that I would upset the atmosphere at Atlético.
Far from upsetting the atmosphere, Nelinho inspired Atlético to 3 state championships in his 5 years at the club. He eventually retired aged 37, and now, 24 years later, he's very much looking forward to yet another World Cup adventure.
It's very exciting because we all know what a great event and a great party the World Cup is for everybody. As a player, I've witnessed this in other countries, and as a supporter, I've experienced the party it creates here in Brazil. You can just imagine what it's going to be like hosting a World Cup in our own country. But it's a huge responsibility. And it's not just about having a good World Cup off the pitch. For us, as supporters, we also need the Brazilian team to have a good tournament on the pitch.
And a spectacular goal or two wouldn't go amiss. Among those helping to bring the World Cup to Belo Horizonte is Bárbara Fidelis de Souza. Just 18 years of age, Bárbara lives in Vila Santa Rosa, in the shadow of the Mineirão, an imposing venue that will host 6 matches during the 20th FIFA World Cup. And it's here at the Mineirão that Bárbara spends her days as a construction worker on the project to redevelop the stadium, which often attracted crowds in excess of 100,000.
I have 3 main functions. I make notes for the engineers, the surveyors, and the quality control group. So I keep myself busy. I also supervise some of our workers because a few of them don't always do what they're supposed to do. They don't follow the drawings. They have been known to go to the changing rooms after lunch and not come back, so I have to keep an eye on them.
First opened in 1965, the Mineirão was the largest stadium in Minas Gerais and regularly hosted matches featuring Belo's 3 big teams, Cruzeiro, Atlético Mineiro and América. Renovation work began here in June 2010, and once completed in time for the 2013 FIFA Confederations Cup, the new Mineirão will boast a capacity of 65,000.
The first time I went there, before they started building, I stood in the centre circle and turned around, imagining everybody screaming my name and singing the national anthem. It made me want to cry. It was very emotional.
Yes, Bárbara, like so many Brazilians, is passionate about her football. And when she's not at work, she can often be found mixing it with the men on the football pitch in Vila Santa Rosa. And she certainly deserves their respect. Bárbara spent 4 years with Atlético Mineiro, initially in the club's academy, and then as a member of the women's senior squad. Sadly, Bárbara was released by Atlético in early 2011, when an injection of cash enabled the club to draft in more experienced players. Still, a few months on, she's determined to bounce back.
My dream has always been the same, and I don't think it will ever change. My dream was to be a football player. If I grow up and don't become a footballer, I'll be frustrated for not achieving what I set out to do. But if it doesn't happen, I'd like to be an engineer instead. I will study as hard as I can to become an engineer.
Barbara is not the only woman on the payroll at the stadium. In fact, of the 12 stadia currently under construction, the Mineirão boasts the highest percentage of female workers. And many, like Barbara, would love to be in attendance when the Brazilian national team comes to town, perhaps during the Confederations Cup, or in the round of 16 if they can win Group A at the 2014 FIFA World Cup.
Look, I don't think I'll be there when Brazil plays because I'd have to save up all my wages until the end of next year to be able to go to the match. But it gives me great satisfaction to know that I'm contributing to a place that I'd like to be at, namely a football stadium, and to know that one day my idols will be playing here.
Much work remains to be done to complete what will be another impressive World Cup venue. And who knows, maybe one day Barbara will get the chance to realise her dream of playing on the pitch at the Mineirão. For the majority of football supporters in Belo Horizonte, 2011 has been a year to forget. Cruzeiro's fans did celebrate a 37th state championship in May, but by late October, long faces were in evidence at the training ground as the threat of relegation loomed large. It was a similar story for the city's other top-flight clubs, América and Atlético Mineiro, with América's plight the most precarious of the three, as the national championship neared its conclusion. So, what's gone wrong?
It might have been down to a lack of planning from the directors of Atlético and Cruzeiro. One group bought a lot of players who weren't in the best physical and technical shape, and the other, that is Cruzeiro, sold a lot of important players halfway through the season, which was a very bad move.
Alberto Rodrigues has been commentating on Cruzeiro's matches for many years. He's witnessed both domestic and continental success and has never seen a season quite like this one. Cruzeiro is one of 5 clubs never to have been relegated from Brazil's top division, although that record was in serious jeopardy throughout much of the 2011 campaign. And this after Cruzeiro had finished runners-up in 2010.
I would say that not having the Mineirão available has really affected us, because it's vital to have a home ground in a very competitive competition, like the Brazilian League. The fact that we're having to play in a different stadium is benefiting our opponents, the teams that always feared playing in Minas Gerais, in the Mineirão.
With works ongoing at the Mineirão and the Independencia, Belo's big three have been playing their home matches in Sete Lagoas, some 70 kilometres outside the city limits. Attendances have suffered as a result, with América the biggest losers in that respect.
I always travel, and I'm always at America's matches, even when they lose. Always. My husband was an America fan, but he passed away, so now I support them twice. Once for him and once for me.
América won 10 successive state championships from 1916, but have triumphed on just 5 occasions since then. In the national championship, after back-to-back promotions, they returned to the top division this season, but finished the campaign in one of the 4 relegation places. So what of Cruzeiro? The 2-time national champions and twice winners of the Copa Libertadores are Minas Gerais' most decorated club. But that history and tradition has counted for little this season, and the fans have a theory on where the problems lie.
Cruzeiro has become a shop, a place of business. Some people might even call it a surrogate mother. The star player arrives, and when he starts doing well, he gets transferred to a European club. So that, coupled with injuries and some decisions that left a lot to be desired in the last 6 months to a year, have really hindered Cruzeiro of late.
Cruzeiro's meeting with Atlético Goianiense in October followed a run of 11 matches without a win. The players may have been low on confidence, but they came from behind twice, eventually getting their noses in front with 17 minutes remaining. But could they hold on?
It's all over, 3-2, a first win for Cruzeiro in the second half of the Brazilian Championship, 3-2. There's still hope, there's still hope.
Cruzeiro would retain their place in the top division, thanks largely to a 6-1 victory on the final day over arch-rivals Atlético, who'd only saved themselves a week before. Cruzeiro, Atlético and América will renew their rivalry in the state championship in January, and the hope is that 2012 will be a better year all round for football in Belo Horizonte. Next time on the 2014 FIFA World Cup magazine, Brazil's most populous city, Sao Paulo. We'll meet the World Cup winner offering a helping hand at the foundation that bears his name. And get in the mood for Carnival with Corinthians fan group Gaviões da Fiel. Until then, goodbye.